top 15 hack and slash games of all time. 15. Hi-Fi Rush, the greatest rhythm game ever made is this one. Additionally, it might be the greatest beat 'em up ever. Because this game is so amazing, it is harder for me to state that it is not the finest of its kind than it is to declare that it is the worst. Although it isn't required, learning and mastering rhythmic combat is immensely rewarding. It is highly praised for having a stunning comic book art style that is strikingly comparable to Into the Spider-Verse. Each and every character in this game is undeniably flawless, perfectly balanced in their roles, and brimming with personality and complexity. From the graphics to the characters to the music to the gameplay and all points in between, the game is endearing in practically every way, and I heartily suggest it. 14. Midnight Fight Express. You can fight viciously and with extreme vigor in Midnight Fight Express. Excellent soundtrack and overall flow. There are many trials, engaging boss fights with varying degrees of difficulty, and combat techniques that are easy enough to learn over time. It's a nice feature that Midnight Fight Express has leaderboards, a rating system, and collectibles. Although I don't particularly like the addition of guns because it somewhat disrupts the battle, they aren't too bothersome after you get used to the various combos. However, given that melee fighting is a major component of this game, gun foes can get more and more annoying as the game progresses, especially in the later stages when you are constantly surrounded by them. In the end, the combat style is a hybrid of Sifu and Sleeping Dogs without the firearms. Overall, it's a really fulfilling game that becomes addictive as you learn the combat combos. Good value given the quantity of stuff you receive. It's much better when it's on sale. Midnight Fight Express receives a strong 7 from me. 13. Code Vein? It's really simply a fantasy anime called Dark Souls, and I'm not sure why I didn't test it sooner. The various blood codes you can discover are cool, as is the exploring. Along with the sequences that give you the impression that you are watching a movie, the customization is by far the best feature. Admire the variety of parries you may perform with various blood veils. The buddies in this fantastic game may be my favorite feature. They are not cumbersome. If you are injured, your partner will physically stand in front of you and protect you, giving you time to recover. It's incredible. Even though the game is mostly designed to be played alone, it seems like teamwork. However, the multiplayer option is fantastic as well. A huge thumbs up for how they integrated multiplayer into this. I'm liking it so far, but it might not be for everyone. Get this game when it's on sale, please. Once you understand the game principles, playing it is incredibly enjoyable and gratifying. The world creation is fantastic, but the tale isn't that bad either, albeit a little bit trite at times. Make your favorite anime character and transform into a fierce vampire. It's well worth the $10. 12. The first Berserker, Khazan. With its hack and slash components, the first Berserker. Khazan is a daring and vicious addition to the Souls-like genre that manages to feel both familiar and unique. Khazan is a game that demands your respect because of its rich, character-driven plot that is based on sorrow and retribution, its aggressive, parry-heavy combat system, and its eye-catching, anime-inspired visuals. Khazan, which takes place decades before the events of Dungeon Fighter Online, examines the demise of a once great general who was exiled as a traitor after being betrayed by his allies. What may have been a straightforward tale of retaliation becomes a reflection on identity, honor, and anger. The game uses voiced dialogue, rich yet approachable environmental storytelling, and cinematic cutscenes to tell its story more directly than it does through esoteric mythology. Arid's world is harsh yet stunning, with areas that seem real and rich in mythology. You'll pass across villages devastated by conflict, as well as frost-bitten castles and cursed temples that all tell tales of vanished civilizations and collapsing hierarchies. Punishment, speed, and accuracy are the cornerstones of Khazan's battle strategy. It adopts a more Sekiro-like approach instead of the careful, stamina-hoarding approach of many Souls-likes. 11. Final Fantasy XVI. Considering its gameplay, narrative, and the renowned icon combat, Final Fantasy XVI is unquestionably among the greatest video games ever created. Because it falls short of their expectations, which include the absence of a genuine JRPG system and conventional turn-based combat, people criticize it for all the wrong reasons. Older Final Fantasy fans may be disappointed, but they must acknowledge that this game was never promoted as a full-fledged JRPG. Square Enix clearly took a different approach with their more recent Final Fantasy games, which I wholeheartedly support because they better suit my preferences. In my opinion, the goal of Final Fantasy games has always been to tell a fantastic story, and 16 succeeds in doing so, while also having improved gameplay mechanics. Of course, you are welcome to disagree. You cannot alter my opinion any more than I can alter yours. Actually, the only reason I purchased Final Fantasy XVI was because the combat designer from Devil May Cry 5 was involved in it. In addition, I was welcomed by a fantastic tale and a beautiful world full of characters that I could relate to. Before continuing, I want to caution you that this review contains both small and large spoilers, so proceed with caution. 10. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Experience that showcases the extensive backstory of the franchise. Although the game has a good plot, it is nothing spectacular. Maybe it wasn't until the later parts of the game that I thought the characters weren't fully incorporated into the narrative. Slicing and dicing with the lightsaber and force is always a great mix, and the combat is decent with a number of skills accessible as you progress. Although the game's poor navigation system makes exploring the planets tiresome, the explorable planets are atmospheric and full of lore. The fact that EA managed to release a respectable single-player Star Wars game with minimal to no microtransactions was unexpected. Despite being quite mediocre, I would still suggest this game to people who aren't huge Star Wars fans. You may find this reasonably entertaining single-player game on sale for a low price. An amazing tale full of fascinating characters, amazing settings, fun exploration, and ingenious challenges. However, its amazing soundtrack and atmosphere are what really set this game out as one of the greatest in the Star Wars universe. This is a must-play for any fan of Star Wars or anyone who enjoys fantastic action-adventure games. 9. Warhammer 40,000, Space Marine 2. A neutral rating would be nice. What's good is amazing, and what's bad is that it's reducing the number of active players. It's an amazing story that leaves you wanting more. In addition to allowing you to select and practice a class whose success is transferred to multiplayer, the operations mode is actually entertaining and demonstrates the actions of the B team throughout the main plot. The bad news is that it's pretty horrible. Particularly on the opposing side, the multiplayer servers are terrible. If you discover a game where most players don't have pings higher than 100, you're lucky. If you find a game where players have pings as high as 300 plus, it can seriously harm the game. It's enjoyable when the ping is minimal, but it appears to have become worse with time. Perhaps my favorite game of 2024 was this one, but now I often ask myself if it's worth the time when I want to play it. I would be lying if I claimed that I felt the same way about multiplayer as I did at launch, even if the content is good and is frequently added enough to keep you occupied, as my playtime demonstrates. 8. Ninja Gaiden 2. I just finished playing the game today, and I would highly suggest it to anyone who enjoys hack and slash games. It was enjoyable to learn the controls, how the opponents operate, and how to avoid and block, even if the game is challenging because there are a lot of enemies that can attack you at once. The character doesn't have auto-lock, and the camera doesn't auto-lock. Although it has a camera that flips out like a shuriken straight out of 2008, this is still a good modern rendition of Ninja Gaiden 2, which is still a fantastic character action game. Since this remaster appears to be based on the Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 code, it is not as tight as the Xbox 360 original and contains filler stages with Ryu's many scantily clad female friends. However, dismemberment has returned. Adversaries are swift, ferocious, and numerous, and everything is bright with Unreal 5 paint. I still prefer the NES Ninja Gaiden trilogy over the Xbox versions, and NS Ninja Gaiden 2 is the best of the best. However, it's a solid holdout until the release of Ragebound and Ninja Gaiden 4 later this year, and a fun button pusher. 7. Katana ZERO. Excellent sound effects, graphics, animations, soundtrack, and gameplay. With nice relaxation periods in between the action-packed levels, the pacing is often excellent. There is excellent character development, world building, and writing throughout these cooling periods. You can probably guess that this game is nearly flawless if you've read anything I've written thus far. However, I think the game falters a little bit as we reach the main gameplay loop. You see, I adore the available moveset. Everything you need is available, including slow-mo, bullet deflecting, dodge rolling, wall jumping, and slashing in various directions. It's a short reset after death, and you're back. Some of the level designs required near-perfect accuracy to pass, which annoyed me. Celeste is the only level that comes to mind when I think of these more difficult ones, although Celeste's level was unchanging. You might gradually progress through the level. The opponent placements here are quite arbitrary, including whether or not they see you, whether or not they choose to shoot, what angle they shoot from, and other factors. One may argue that this keeps the game more interesting and unpredictable, making you think quickly, but I believe that adds stress and goes against the game's original intent of being a precise action game. 6. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. One of the greatest games I've ever played with fantastic music and a really entertaining battle system. I still have to beat the revenge challenge, but I really enjoy the fight. The final boss is very boring and semi-rung dependent, and some of the enemies are really annoying, but I got good enough to rip through them anyhow, so it's kind of just a skill issue. Other than that, this game is fantastic. The only problems I've had are that the mouse and keyboard controls are badly designed and completely terrible in comparison to the controller. The only game that can go from discussing memes as the Souls DNA to instantly being one of the most hyped battles ever, including a bloodlusted ninja cyborg and a man who can use telekinesis and willingly split his body into several pieces. Pure movie. 9.8 out of 10. Purchase this if you can. It easily outperforms the majority of AAA titles that cost 3 times as much. It would be strange not to try the other Metal Gear games after playing this one, though, assuming your ADHD is not bad enough. The fourth of may be difficult to imitate, but it is just too excellent of a game to simply skip past or watch a story summary of, in my opinion. 5. Bayonetta 2. The game Bayonetta 2, developed by the same team that made Devil May Cry and NieR Automata, is just amazing. The tale is completely absurd in the best conceivable manner. The action is quick-paced and immensely exciting, and the graphics are stunning. Those who are sensitive to religious imagery or overtly unclothed ladies are the only ones who might halt. It's debatable whether the protagonist is a strong female character or a worn-out cliché, but I like to think the former. Although it's up for debate, she never comes across as just eye candy and truly embodies her character. Additionally, as Nintendo owns the rights, this game, which is published by Nintendo, developed by Platinum, and has nothing to do with Sega, will regrettably never be available on the PlayStation or Xbox. Since Nintendo was the only company ready to support Bayonetta 2 and the impending 3, in exchange for exclusivity, Hideki Kamiya has claimed that the game wouldn't exist without them. 4. Devil May Cry 5. The eagerly anticipated return of one of the most recognizable game franchises, Devil May Cry 5, not only lives up to expectations but surpasses them with its style, content, and unadulterated, relentless action. This 2019 edition, which was developed by Capcom, takes the cherished series back to its origins and offers players all of the things they adore about Devil May Cry. Outrageous combat, incredible music, stunning graphics, and a memorable cast of characters. Then it goes one step further, offering a polished, sophisticated, and aesthetically gorgeous experience that challenges our preconceived notions about hack-and-slash games. The combat system in Devil May Cry 5 is its core, and I can assure you that it is perfect. Fast-paced, fluid fighting has always been a hallmark of the franchise, but DMC5 elevates it to a new level of excellence. Nero, Dante, and an enigmatic new character dubbed V are the game's 3 main characters. Each of them has special fighting techniques that keep the action interesting throughout the whole journey. Now that he has a new robotic arm, the Devil Breaker, Nero can engage in both close quarters and ranged combat while experimenting with a variety of unique skills. As flamboyant as ever, Dante, the famed demon hunter, can switch between different weapon styles on the fly, enabling almost infinite combo inventiveness. 3. God of War Ragnarok. Ragnarok's gameplay is nearly the same as that of God of War 2018. It makes extensive use of timing and runic attacks and employs the same combo-based strategy. It's challenging and has a lot of depth. Even on normal, the game is challenging. You can't rely on ordinary button mashing to beat it. Instead, you'll need to gain a feel for the battle. In certain situations throughout my gameplay, particularly when there were several enemies, I thought the game was unfair. In contrast, I think the prequel was less harsh. You will frequently be struck from behind, and in certain circumstances, this is unavoidable. Even in the most tough battles, I refuse to lower the difficulty because it is still a great challenge. My primary grievance with Ragnarok is the modifications it makes, or rather, doesn't make. Ultimately, it is essentially the same as the last one, just larger. Although you have a new weapon to use, which is quite fantastic, and shields have been somewhat redesigned, the gameplay is still not very varied. Most of the supporting material is identical to that of God of War 2018. There are chests, buried treasure, lore, and artifact gathering. This is still a really good single-player game, as good as it gets, and it's okay that it seems like a very safe sequel. 2. Hades. Set in the world of Greek mythology, Hades is an exciting game that blends fast-paced action with a complex plot. You take on the role of Zagreus, Hades' son, who is attempting to flee the underworld. As you take on new foes, test out special weaponry, and receive upgrades that alter the gameplay, each try feels fresh and thrilling. The controls are satisfying and fluid, making it simple to get started but difficult enough to keep you interested. Every element, from the battle to the world's details, feels thoughtfully designed and immerses you in Zagreus' journey. The plot and characters of Hades are among its best features. Hades has a deep story that develops with every escape attempt, in contrast to many other games of its kind. You converse with the gods, heroes, and even your own family each time you die and try again, discovering more about their tales and witnessing the development of Zagreus' connections. This depth raises the game to a completely new level and elevates it above the status of an action game. Not only are you battling your way through the underworld, but you are also discovering a very emotional and intimate story. 1. NieR Automata. There are no better words to describe the experience we had playing this exceptional RPG action game. It may appear to be an action and slash super shallow game, with a focus on 2B buttocks as the primary feature. However, as you begin to explore the universe that Yoko Taro has created for this one, you will gradually come to realize that it is not the game that appears on the surface. It includes an intensely emotional narrative, a clever side mission, a robust battle system, amazing soundtrack, and a little bit of lunacy added by Yoko Taro. Slowly but surely, he was revealing the core of the android's quest to preserve the world. Everything is presented from the viewpoint of a distinct character, NieR. Automata isn't perfect, but it's one of the few games that goes above and above in terms of story, mechanics, and emotion. Effects and combat system, particularly with sword slashes and visual effects, animations and attack patterns are somewhat monotonous. The impact frequently appears the same. But even after many hours, the fighting is still entertaining and captivating. You are encouraged to create your own play style, whether it be aggressive, defensive, or hacker-focused, because of the responsive controls, tactical plug-in chips, and unrestricted weapon switching.